Hi everyone, my name is Palak. My teammate Lulu and I are going to be talking about the research paper How Childhood Advertising Affects Adult Behavior.
Hi, everyone. I will be talking about the main insights of the paper. So, the key insight is that the childhood exposure to advertising creates a long creates a long-lasting bias product evaluation that eventually continues into adulthood. This bias is driven by a favorable response or emotional attachment created from advertising stimuli, which could be characters, jingles, um, photos, or specific themes from the advertising content. This leads a child to encounter, which leads a child to encounter, hence forming opinions of the original advertised products and potential light extensions into adulthood.
Another main insight that we figured is the emotional biases that continue to mold judgments of products extending into adulthood. Emotional biases developed during childhood significantly influence product judgment. And these biases affect not only the perceptions of the originally advertised product, but also extend into line extensions that utilize similar advertising stimuli, such as characters, jingles, or themes. For example, when a consumer encounters a new product or from a brand that they are familiar with, um, especially the ones that have the same advertising character or catchy jingle, they may unconsciously transfer their positive or negative feelings from the original product to the new one. Um, this also highlights the power of early advertising experiences and how they shape consumer behavior over time. Moreover, these emotional associations that are formed during childhood can create a sense of nostalgia or familiarity that further reinforces consumer loyalty. As a result, marketers can leverage these emotional connections in their advertising strategies to uh, build their brand equity and also influence purchasing decisions, demonstrating like a lasting impact of emotional biases on consumer judgments throughout their lives.
Now we're going to look at the psychological mechanisms underpinning the impact of the independent variable on the dependent variable. The independent variable is childhood exposure to advertising, and the dependent variable is the biased product evaluations in adulthood. And then the psychological mechanism that supports this relationship is positive affect, which refers to the positive emotional attachment developed during childhood due to the constant exposure of advertising characters, jingles, and narratives. These emotional attachments affect consumers' judgment, making them to favor products that were advertised to them as children, even when such products don't require such favorable evaluations like unhealthy foods. Also, according to More and Lots, children are more vulnerable to emotional appeals and respond more positively to ads showcasing fun and happiness. Also, Ellis says that initially developed concepts are easily recognized and categorized than those learned at a later stage. So, foods you are used to as children are more acceptable to you as an adult than foods you start eating when you're an adult.
When we speak about psychological mechanisms, we understand that exposure to childhood advertising has a profound impact on product evaluation in adulthood as well. The paper that is written by Connell, Brucks, and Nielsen highlights this effect, especially in study one, which shows how older adults tend to evaluate products associated with positive childhood advertising more favorably than the ones that are advertised during their adult years. Uh, This shows that early exposure to specific marketing messages can actually create like a lasting emotional connection, and that influences the consumer's perception even after the initial exposure of these advertising have faded. When we speak about the studies 3 and 4, it reveals that the participants in this study who had strong positive feeling toward certain advertising characters are less likely to alter their evaluation even when they are provided with corrective information. This highlights how emotional biases from childhood can overshadow rational assessments, and leading to like a enduring preference that marketers can exploit to foster their brand loyalty and influence purchasing decisions of their consumers throughout their lifespan.
Now I'm going to talk about the implication of affective biases. So the tenacity of biases has effects on public health, especially concerning unhealthy food advertising. So if you resonate more to advertisements of Frosted Flakes or Cocoa Pops or Cheetos, Lay's, these are unhealthy foods which ultimately lead to obesity, diabetes, and in general affect the health of all the public. And most adults are used to this food because that's what they were used to growing up. Also, advertisement targeted towards children usually are about high calorie, low nutrition food, which obviously would lead to long term health impacts like diabetes, as I mentioned before.
The key goal was to determine whether the exposure to childhood advertising leads to biased product evaluation in adulthood. The mechanism that was used was basically dividing people into two groups. One with individuals that were born between 1958 and 1962, that represented the older cohort, and the second one being the people born between 1989 to 1994, that represented the younger cohort. Each group evaluated product associated with their childhood versus their adulthood advertising. So older participants assessed in the Kellogg's Frosties, which basically featured the character Tony the tiger during their childhood, and the younger participants evaluated Kellogg's Cocoa Pops, which is associated with Coco the monkey. We found that the older participants rated Frosties as a much healthier option in comparison to Cocoa Pops, and this was supported in a marginally significant two-way interaction, and there were statistical results in the form of the equation as shown on the screen, where we could see that the p-value is 0.056. This finding kind of reiterates the whole notion that positive emotional association from childhood advertising can actually lead to shape consumer perception after, even after like a long initial exposure has occurred. The data also suggests that nostalgia and favorable feelings linked to childhood add significantly to the influence of how individuals are making decisions on assessment of products, based on the memories that they have, even if they are given a potentially conflicting information about the product's nutritional value.
So, we're going to talk about the analytical strategies and findings of each study done in the paper. Study two's purpose was to determine whether biased product evaluations are due to advertising exposure or memories of consumption. Study two was done on 151 US based participants, and they were shown an advertising character or product image and were asked to rate which resonated with them more. And this study found out that biased product evaluations were more evident when the stimuli were advertising related, the advertising character or the jingle, than where than when they were consumption related. The product like Fruit Loops. This confirms that advertising drives biased evaluations.
Study 3 and four's main aim was to examine the resilience of biased product evaluation, which are influenced by childhood advertising, and to assess the effectiveness of various techniques aimed at correcting these biases. For study 3, there was a sample of 150 health conscious undergrad students who participated in the study. They were presented with advertising stimuli that were either relevant, like Tony the Tiger, or irrelevant, like Play Doh Pete. This design kind of aimed to assess how well participants could recognize and adjust their evaluation based on emotional associations that are evoked by advertising characters. Upon assessment, we found that the results indicated that participants who had high positive effect toward relevant advertising character, which here is Tony the Tiger, they did not adjust their biased evaluation, even though they were motivated to do so, even when they knew that this is not a healthy option. They still were not ready to adjust the bias, and this was analyzed and showed a marginal significant effect, and with a p-value of 0.075. This finding basically highlights how robust emotional biases are, even when participants were encouraged to reassess their evaluation. The favorable feeling associated with childhood advertising remained influential. When we talk about study 4, a total of 78 participants underwent a defense manipulation designed to strengthen their ability to identify and correct biases in the product evaluation. This approach was intended to test whether participants could effectively alter their assessment when prompted to consider their potential biases. And we found that evaluations of products were not only influenced by original advertising but also extended to their line extension of the brands. This carryover effect was attributed to affect referral, where the positive emotions linked to original products advertising influence perception of the line extension. And this was showcased with a p value of less than 0.05. This suggests that emotional connections from childhood ads can persist and affect consumer evaluation of related products, demonstrating the long lasting impact of early advertising experience on consumer behavior.
So now we're going to talk about how marketers or firms could use these insights. First off, building long-term and brand loyalty. By targeting children with emotionally appealing advertisements, like characters, jingles, and narratives, marketers can build positive associations with products which persist into adulthood. This can help in creating long-term brand loyalty, especially for consumer goods with repeated purchase potentials like snacks, cereals, drinks, sodas, stuff like that. Also, marketers could also make use of literary tropes to also create positive attachment stories. For example, Legos Rebuild the World campaign, M&M's Fun to Eat commercials, and My Little Pony's Friendship is Magic toy ads.
When we talk about marketers' insight for nonprofit organizations, there are two key suggestions that we have come up with. Firstly, nonprofit organizations can connect with children emotionally and through a character, to talk about different issues. For instance, they can talk about climate change by creating a character around a polar bear, or a northern white rhino, which is in on the verge of extinction, to talk about how children can behave responsibly to um, create impact on the environment and the character. Current real-time example for this would be Smokey the Bear, that basically talks about preservation of the environment. The Second suggestion would be, let's say if a non-profit organization who wants to focus on health could use insights to disclaim like long-term biases caused by unhealthy food. A real-time example of this is UK, and how they ban ads on junk food for children. A lot of European countries such as Norway, Chile, Ireland actually ban advertisement of unhealthy food, and they also ban celebrities from advertising for such food.
Finally, we're going to talk about our additional insight based off of the findings of the research paper. First off is the impact on parent-child purchases. One insight that was not fully explored in this study was the role of childhood advertising in influencing parents when making purchases for their children. Given the bias that childhood advertising creates, parents may be more likely to purchase products they were exposed to as children when their own children request them. Advertisers can tap into this by promoting their products as family traditions. Also, we can make use of predictive analytics to analyze future trends and focus on the product slash character of today to start creating nostalgic value for the future. The children of today are the parents and decision makers of tomorrow. AG is Grace's Corner, which can also be used to create nostalgia in toddlers of today.
We also propose to place ads that are targeted towards children on digital and social media platforms that are being accessed by children, and on channels that are streaming content which interests children, so that there is a recall value for them, and so that there is an impression and an impact that that an advertisement can have on a child. Secondly, we would like to introduce collectibles or sensory toys that basically tap into a child's memory, help him interact, build with those toys, and also create like collectibles that they can talk about like in the future. So for example, in India, back in the 90s and 2000s, we had something called Tazos, which was a product, a freebie that was provided by Cheetos. Similarly, Happy Meals always provide toys, so there is a recall value of a Happy Meal and a toy, or Cheetos and Tazos, and that also kind of creates nostalgia and brand loyalty.
Thank you.